Now that we've got the floor plan image inserted and the rotation correct, we're just about ready to trace over our walls. So if you look closely, you can see the or the exterior elevation icons here, and our image is not quite centered on that. So I'm going to just take my image and the few lines that I've drawn, careful not to include the exterior elevation point, and just drag it into the middle. So that will save us a little bit of time later on. Oh, it's a good reminder right now to save your work. So go up and close all the hidden views and save your work. Do that often. I'm not prepared to redo even 5 or 10 minutes worth of work, so I like to save very often. All right, so we've got our plan ready to trace. We go into the Architecture tab, pick Wall. There's a generic 6-inch wall. We're going to use the generic 6-inch wall. You can see in this template there are several wall types loaded. We're going to start with those and modify them as we need them. So I just want to show what is made up of a wall and the parts we have to pay attention to. If I go into Edit Type and pick under Structure, it shows us that we've got a 6-inch generic structure, no category picked, and we can leave that for now. But what I want to point out are the 2 core boundaries. Core boundary are the control points of any wall. Typically the core boundary is the exterior of the structure, and then our exterior finish goes beyond that. So if we were to add siding or stucco, it would be outside of the core boundary. So it would be the finish would happen here, then the core boundary, then our structure. So if you think about the importance of the core boundary, it is what lines up from floor to floor. It's what we dimension to. So if our basement plan was 25 feet long for the foundation wall, then the main floor wall should also be 25 feet long. But when you think about what we're actually pointing to, on the basement it would be the outside of the foundation wall. On the main floor it would be the outside of the wall sheathing. So just want you to think about that core boundary and how important it is. So we're not going to change anything on that, but when we go back to start drawing our wall, I would like you to look right here. It says location line. This is where sort of the grip on the wall that we have. Watch what happens if I just start right now. From this click, it says wall center line. If I click the start of my wall, you can see that it is going on the center of the wall. And I don't want that. I want my outside face of my sheathing, my core boundary, to follow these lines, because these are the modular 25-foot by 28-foot house lines. So I'm going to go back to wall, and I'm going to change the location line to what I want it to be, and I want it to be the exterior core face, not exterior finish, but exterior core face. Core is the structure face. That's what we want, and in our case that would be face of sheathing, and we will create more detailed walls later. The importance of this is when we switch this generic wall for a more complex wall, our core boundaries are going to be what stays in line, and that's really important because otherwise our dimensions would change. So exterior core face, watch when I click on this now, it's coming exactly on that corner. If I wanted to work from right to left, all you have to do is hit the space bar and it flips axis. Space bar flips axis. So whatever, I'm going to go down the page here. Or I guess maybe I'll go across because we have that other line. So if you see here, I'm just reading my dimensions as I drag that wall. Because we had that other line drawn, it snaps right to 25, which is the correct wall, and I'm just going to keep going. Now for coming down here, we wanted it to be 28 feet, so I could carefully watch my text as I drag it, or I can simply put my cursor in the direction I want to go, which in this case is straight down, and I can type in 28, and then it's done. And now I'm going to come across this way. Look, I can come way over here and type in 25, and I don't have to worry about anything, and then I can click to this wall and escape. So now I've got the perimeter of my house. We'll add the garage and grade beam later. So just from a starting point, you can see later on we're going to trace the interior walls. You don't have to be perfect on your initial wall positions, because we can change them just by selecting the dimensions. So for example, let's say this wall, we didn't eyeball it perfectly and it was out there. Well, I can click on it and get a dimension that I'm in charge of. Now this dimension defaults to the center of the wall, but I can drag that little blue dot to the outside of the wall and do the same down here to the outside of the wall. And if you can't get it to to stay where you want it to stay, the tab button is what allows you to toggle between surfaces. So anytime you have choices within a command, use the tab button. You can see how I'm hitting the tab button and it's flipping to the options here, center or face. When you're happy with the one you want, just let go. So now I've got a temporary dimension line that just came up because I selected an item, and it says 29 feet. I can override that to 28. And it's the selected item that will change position. So I've selected the front wall, typed in 28, and it bops back to 28. So that's a start on the walls. Let's have a look. Before we get too far, we might as well have a look at what's happening with our spot elevations and how this is being controlled. So I'm going to go to the south elevation, and you can see these walls. This is supposed to be a main floor wall, but it's way above the second floor top of wall. So if I look at this wall, if I just highlight it, this wall over in the properties, I took my properties from this side of the drawing and I just keep them over here on this side. I like the properties on one side and the views on the other. Anyway, I've got a wall highlighted here. It says its base constraint was top of main subfloor, and that was because we were working on the first floor level. So that's correct. We just renamed the spot elevation to this name. Then the top constraint, it said it was unconnected and had a height of 20 feet. And if you go back, let's go back to the main floor. Before we start a wall, I'm just going to cancel out escape out of everything. If I start a new wall, I want you to just see that it had a unconnected height of 20 feet. So let's go back and see what the ramifications of that are. We're drawing our walls in plan look correct, but they were at 20 feet high. So maybe what we should have is we should set our wall height. Now we have a spot elevation for the top of the second subfloor, but we don't have a spot elevation to control the top of the wall height, and I think it would be handy. We've got one for the second floor, but we don't have one for the main. So I would like to do that. So what I'm going to do is we're going to reestablish our spot elevations as it relates to our preliminary stage when we did the partial wall section, just to calculate what we wanted our spot elevations to be. So I'm going to say 100-foot main floor. I would like to have top of wall for the main floor a 9-foot wall. So that means the subfloor is going to have to move up. So based on my calculations on my preliminary documents here that you can't see, I've got a top of main floor wall set to 109 feet because I want a 9-foot wall. And the top of the second subfloor is 110 foot 8 because based on my framing analysis, I determined that my floor structure needed to be 20 inches deep. So that's 1 foot 8. So that puts 9 feet plus 1 foot 8 is 10 foot 8 on top of a 100 foot elevation means 110 foot 8. So let's just edit that. We can simply type in what we want it to be, 110 foot 8. 110 foot 8 inches and hit enter, and that moves up. Now what we're going to do is we're going to just highlight this and copy it down. You can insert spot elevations. Just go to view and insert spot elevate, not view, architecture, and there's a spot elevation. If we insert a spot elevation through the architecture tab, click it and put it in, it will show up on our list as an available floor plan or view. And I know my top of wall is never going to be a floor plan view that I need, so I'm going to go a shortcut way to do it, and that is just simply copy this down. Copy, and I said I wanted that subfloor thickness to be 20 inches, so I can type in 20, but because feet is the default unit, we want this to be inches, we have to do shift quotes, put in the double tick for inches, and hit enter. So now I've copied a new elevation. It just called it level 8. It's just a default that they have. But notice that it didn't add to our views over here. So if you need it to be a view, you have to use the architecture insert. And I'll do one as that as well. So this one, the name for this one I'm going to give is top of main wall, just so I can pick it out of a list later on. So top of the main floor wall is 109 feet. And then 1 foot 8 above that is the second floor. The top of the second floor wall, if I'm going to go with 9-foot walls there as well, that spot elevation would be 119 feet 8 inches, feet 8, and that looks right for the upper portion of the building. So what happens here, if I grab all of these walls, I'm going to change them. I want to keep the base constraint, top of main floor, but the top constraint, I want to change it from what it had been the default of unconnected. I want to change that to, these are the list of available spot elevations. I want it to be the top of main wall. So it's really important you name things clear so that you can choose the correct one. Look at that. Now it took all those walls, and they are, the base connection is the main subfloor, and the upper connection is the top of main wall. And if we look at that in the 3D view, there's our box of our house that we've started. If I go to top, you can see north is up, so the south elevation is looking from down here, north elevation would be looking from up here. If you hold your shift key down and you press the wheel button, you can rotate. So wheel button plus shift key gets you to rotate. Wheel button plus control zooms. Okay,